Good day, everyone. I am EonShiKeno back with another strategy tutorial. I have to say, I have to thank everybody who's appreciated all my previous strategy videos. I've got a lot of positive feedback on them, so I'm going to continue to do them. I even had one person comment saying he won a small tournament because of it. He won a couple of games and won $10 because of it, so that's pretty cool. I'm still waiting on my cut on that $10, but let's move on into the strategy tutorial for today. It's going to focus on a TVP build order that's based on the 1-1-1 build. The units it revolves around is Marines, tanks, and Banshees. You've all probably heard of it. It's quite flavor of the month right now, but it's a good build nonetheless. No matter what month it is, it's still a good build. So we're going to go through it today in this tutorial. So I'm not going to walk you through the entire build order. You guys can read it and follow it for yourself. I just want to point out a couple of the key points here. So it does open up the 1-1-1, which is the 1 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport. You're going to have 2 gas. And what I like to do is, just for a little bit of safety, after I make my 4th Marine, I like to throw down a bunker. And following that, I use the bunker just in case a stalker wants to pressure me, or the 4 gate is incoming, and it's nice to have that bunker already there. So going to place a bunker down here at the front, have some Marines here, and also kind of hides your tech a little bit. That way if they poke up, they can't really see what you're doing. So the second part I want to talk about is what I do with this TechLab swapping around. So as soon as I make my factory, I start making a TechLab on it, and as soon as that one finishes, I, whoops, wrong button. I like to pick it up, fly it over, and make another TechLab, because I'm going to be making tanks out of this factory and the Banshees out of this starport. Now, the reason I do this is because I think it's more important to have your Banshee out faster, your first Banshee out faster, than it is to have your first tank out faster. In this build, I like to harass with my first Banshee just to keep my opponent on edge. That way I can harass, kind of keep them distracted. That way they aren't really worried about me pushing across the map, because that is one of the weaknesses of this build, is the push across the map. So as you'll see here, I'm going to swap over. I'm going to throw down a reactor on this barracks so I can make Marines out of this, Banshees out of this starport, and tanks out of this factory. So this build is designed to leave your base at about the 8-minute mark. We're going to have 14 Marines, 3 tanks, 2 Banshees, and we're going to have a siege tech on the way right as soon as we finish. Don't start your siege tech until you start your 3rd tank. You want to get those tanks out as fast as possible, and by the time you cross the map, your siege tech should be finished. Now, I also like to bring along 4 or 5 SCVs. That way we can build bunkers to push our opponent's expansion, or if they don't have an expansion, just contain them to 1 base. So with my first Banshee, I like to go and harass my opponent. Now kind of the current trend for the Protoss player is to take an expansion pretty quickly. So you can either harass their expansion or you can harass their main. One of the two might be easier to harass depending on what map you're on, depending on what kind of cliffs or whatever there are you can use to your advantage as a Terran player and with this Banshee. So like I said earlier, I like to get the fast starport up with the TechLab, so that we can get this Banshee out as quick as possible to start harassing my opponent. Now, the trick with this Banshee is not, if you don't kill anything, it's not really that big of a deal. It's kind of a bonus, but do not let this Banshee die. The point of this Banshee is to have your opponent worried about a Banshee, worried about maybe cloak, worried about harass. So they'll try and leave their units, if they're a good Protoss player, leave some of their units in the back of their base to defend it. And if they're focusing on the back of their base, and at their expansion mineral line, they're not going to be focused on the front of their base and across the map while you're pushing it. So it's kind of distracting them with a little bit of harass while you push your main force across the map. And like I said before, that is the most vulnerable part of this build, is whenever you're pushing across the map. The build really kicks into gear once you siege up your tanks outside their base and you start building bunkers. So we can watch this here. Go ahead, just kill a couple dudes, and then as soon as I see any units, just instantly run away. I got 2 kills there. Nothing crazy. 2 kills is nice, though. And I'm just going to fall back, go back to base, and repair up. And now he's got this, he's kind of worried about Banshees at this point. I could ran over here, but you can see he's already placing 1 stalker up here at this mineral line. And I think he has most of his units here anyway, and he also has 2 observers. So, I mean, I can really just take this Banshee and do whatever I want with it, clear out this Naga tower. I think is something you should do. Actually, don't do that in this replay, but you want to try and clear your path to your opponent's base. That way they do not see you coming. if you can kind of sneak up on your opponent and just pop this on them and they don't see it coming, then that's just better for you. So as you can see here, I'm going to push out here. I got my 3 tanks, 14 Marines, 2 Banshees, and about 4 or 5 SCVs repairing up that Banshee before I actually get into the fight here. So I'm going to talk about how to set up a contain against a Protoss player. You can see here how this build is going to go, or this push into his expansion. You got the bunkers up front, you got the tanks already sieged up, and you have your Marines kind of hanging here in the back. Now, the key thing I want to talk about here is patience with this push. You do not want to rush into there and have your army out of position and get force fielded and trapped and then lose half your army. That is just a bad thing. My rule of thumb is don't go past the bunkers. You know, bunkers are like your front line. If your Marines are there, have them behind the bunkers. If you want to go forward, build more bunkers. That's kind of how I like to play this. That way, it's nice and slow, and you can just walk your tanks up. And at the same time, here at the top, I'm kind of poking in with the Banshees to kind of distract them just a little bit. So bunkers are up, push the Marines forward a little bit. When that's done, build another bunker. That's why we have all these extra SCVs here. 1, to repair some Banshees like I have here, and 2, also to build some bunkers. Always good to have a lot of bunkers around. And of course, I like to reinforce with all my Marines, reinforce with Marines, reinforce with a Raven, maybe get some Hellions or 2. I got a really nice placement for my tank behind these bunkers. He's going to have to focus fire that. It really limits the path for Zealots. And each map is different. Let me talk about that for a second. So in Zelnaga Caverns here, if he has an expansion, it's really easy to push into the expansion with the siege tanks. But for maps like Shakur's Plateau, you have to do something a little different. In Shakur's Plateau, I'm going to pop up a video of that. You kind of just have to let them have their expansion and just contain them to 2 bases, and then just play a little bit longer of a macro game. Shakur's Plateau, this is a different map design than Zelnaga Cavern. It doesn't have the big open expansion like Zelnaga Cavern has. Zelnaga Caverns is really easy to push actually into the expansion. But this map, not so much. As you can see here, there's a really nice choke point. You really can't, set up as good a contain that actually attacks the Nexus as you can on Zelnaga Cavern. So I like to play this map a little differently. I poke just to see what he has, and I back up. He throws down some force fields, and then I'm going to start setting up my contain outside his base here. Put the bunkers up front, of course, bunkers in front, everything else in the back. Set up a lot of bunkers, get a nice spread. You want to force him into your concave. You want to have the concave position. And with siege tanks, they have really great range, so you can get way up there. Keep the Marines in the back, build some more bunkers, of course. And this is kind of like how I like to play maps that have this hard to control or hard to enter expansion. You just kind of say, okay, you got an expansion, that's fine, I'm going to get an expansion. But if they make the mistake of actually attacking into this, they're going to take a lot of damage. In this situation, my opponent was actually getting a couple Phoenixes out. He's got like 3 or so. So I actually put up like 1 or 2 missile turrets. So you can see my setup I've got right here. My bunkers spread out very far. Marines spread out. SCVs spread out. Raven with enough energy for a point defense drone. Tanks spread out here at the top. And he's going to come and try and push out. Now, for some reason, Protoss players, I've done this build quite a bit in ladder. And Protoss players, once you contain them, they just feel the need to just break out, They don't like to macro up a big army, get a like 170 supply, and then break out and attack you. They like to do it, before that for some reason. And this is where I get a lot of my wins with this build. This Protoss players just want to break the contain. You can see he's bringing up those Phoenixes, picking up my tanks. That's actually working out pretty well. Point defense drone's doing its job as usual. Marines doing some good job. Bunkers getting repaired. Nice job there. He's focus firing down the tank with the Immortal. But he is just not breaking this. As much as he's trying, he's not going to break it. And my contain is going to hold. And he lost a lot of units for that. You can look at the supply difference, 76 versus 56. This is just such a cost-effective position and army composition against Protoss this early in the game that they really just shouldn't attack into this position. Okay, so I'm still on 1 base, as you can see down here. I'm just kind of building up my forces. Poking in here with the Banshee, just trying to distract him as much as possible, but really focusing on the front here. You want to keep this to be your focus of most of your attack, is just make sure you're building bunkers, make sure you're pushing towards his base, get those tanks up and ready. And my Raven has showed up, and eventually I'll have enough energy to throw down a point defense drone. And most Protoss players are just sitting their base for a while until they think they can take you. That's kind of what I've seen on the ladder personally. I play Masters myself on the Masters division. Is most of the time Protoss players will just sit in their base, get up a big army, and then eventually push out. Which I don't think is the best way technically to deal with this build. So Actually, I made a mistake here myself is by putting that tank up front, not following my own rules. That tank doesn't have to be that close. As you can see, the range here is much farther. But it kind of works as a little bit of bait. It instigates him to push, and here we go. Attack is going to go down. Point defense drone going to go down. He's throwing out some force fields, but it really doesn't matter. I got so many Marines here in the back. 3 tanks wailing away. Point defense drone using up all his energy. Banshee's attacking. And he's losing a lot of forces here. Immortal's going to go down, and Banshee's dealing lots of damage. Marines finally come out of the bunkers. They get killed off. And that was a pretty successful fight for me. We can look right now at the supply 70 versus 57. It's going good for me. I've got Cloak finished. I can keep harassing. And I can continue to push up here. So we can just fast forward through this real quick to see how this plays out. He's going to go for another warp in. Go for another attack. And once again, point defense drone has some energy. Kill off the rest of his units. I've got some more units coming in here. Doing another warp in. Going to go at it again. This guy's really persistent. Probably should have brought some more SCVs here. And took out that expansion. And now, pause it for a second. You can see I've got my expansion up and going. Made some more barracks. This expansion does not have to be fast. You need to focus on this area right here. Make this as good as possible and focus on dealing with this stuff here. I should have definitely brought in some more SCVs to repair, build some more bunkers, of course, stuff like that. But of course, you know, I can't play perfect every game. And so I'm ahead, and that's kind of the point of this build is you don't have to send everything to kill the Nexus. As you saw, I only poked up here with like 1 tank and then a couple Banshees, just slowly whittling it away. You don't have to kill it fast. You know, think long term. You know, he's not going to have a Nexus. You're going to have an expansion. You're going to have this nice fortified position outside his base. And I didn't even really move the back of these tanks here. I just poked with just one or two Banshees until he finally just gave up and decided he wanted to go for it. And he's going for another push here. Tries to break it. Does not work. Does the GGs. And that's the end of that game. So this is almost optimally? Yes, exactly how you want your push to work. Takes a lot of refinement and a lot of patience to do this right. You put down the bunkers, go slow, push in with the tanks, and try and harass a little bit with the Banshees if possible. So far, I've shown you how to properly do a push and a contain against a Protoss player. This replay, I'm going to show you how not to do it, how I did it completely wrong, and it ended up really slowing me this game. So let's see what I did here. My number 1 mistake was I went past the bunkers. Look at this. The bunkers are back here. Marines are up here. That is bad news. What happens when I do this? Oh, lovely. Force fields happen, and I lose about 10 Marines. Not good stuff right there. Not good stuff. Marines are definitely critical because they're some of the highest DPS units in the game, and with them in bunkers, they really tear up Stalkers and Immortals very fast. So you need to keep your retention of Marines. And because I lost so many Marines here, I just don't have enough DPS. So actually, when he decides to finally push out here, I just don't have enough units to deal with it. So I'm trying to push up this expansion here. Same stuff so far. Kind of playing a little bit safer now. But here he comes. He's going to break it. Focus firing down on those tanks with Immortals. Nice job on that. Taking them all out. He's just going to clean up my base. No problem. Just remember, keep the bunkers in front. Don't go past the bunkers. You know, take your time. Don't rush it. You know, this is just to put you in a strong position. Make it harder for the Protoss player to take his third while you can freely take your expansion. So that's the end of the strategy tutorial video. Once again, just to cover some quick pointers. Marines, tanks, Banshee, push out, harass with some Banshees, harass with a Banshee, do a little bit of scouting, and then whenever you push slowly, push methodically. Keep your tanks and Marines in the back, bunkers in the front, makes a nice wall, kind of forces the Zealots to to funnel into your units. And, you know, just play slow. It took me a while. I did this a couple of times before I finally realized, okay, I'm doing this way too fast and I'm losing games because of it. So don't underestimate your Protoss opponent. They can just, you know, pounce on you before your bunkers get up and you got your units in front of your bunkers and you just lose everything. So remember not to do that. In the future, I'm going to try to get some more tutorial videos out there. I know I don't release them that often. It's just that whenever I do a tutorial, I like to practice it myself. Like I've done this build probably 20 or 30 times on ladder in the past week. and I just gives myself a better understanding of it. I don't like to just throw tutorials out there. I like to, use them myself to get some kind of insight on them before I give you tutorials. So that's why I don't have like as thousands and hundreds of build order videos as some other people do. If you guys have any success with these tutorials or you have any questions for them, just post them in the comments. Let me know. I love hearing people, say, they won a tournament or whatever, using one of my videos and learning from it. I mean, that's what StarCraft's all about. That's it for me. Once again, see everybody later.